That's Chester Bennington singing the song Numb with his band Linkin Park, and his voice has gone silent forever.
Let's talk about Chester Bennington's death.
This is super interesting. A little more evidence. Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington was silenced because of Pervywood. I don't know if we can talk about that, but we will.
Which it's not entirely unbelievable, because if you see the story of this man, Chester has family in Canada as well.
It just was a huge light bulb.
The numerology and everything doesn't make sense.
Because we know that the elites like to play with numbers because they like to think they're God or Satan.
I don't know if you know this, but
Chris Cornell was murdered on May 17th. Now we go right here. What is the thing with May 17th? Linkin Park, 50 years ago, the afternoon of May 17th, was the anniversary of Linkin Park massacre, right? So Linkin Park ties in with Chester Bennington. Now Chester Bennington died on Chris Cornell's birthday. See how he died on Linkin Park Day?
The band is named after Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park is one of the locations where MK Ultra used to be experimented on in Canada.
Yeah, basically what happened with that, Linkin Park. So we know Linkin Park with Chester Bennington, the band, they're named after Linkin Park. This event that happened many years ago where 13 children were put to death.
13, another number, children aged 2 to 10 put to death. Wow.
Apparently in Canada, the military were running some super secret medical experiments or something like that. Still super under wraps. We don't know what those experiments were. It doesn't go too into detail, but there was one person that survived. She kind of blew this wide open and said that this happened. That's why Chester Bennington's rock group is named after Linkin Park, because of the injustices that happens to children, supposedly.
So that's a link right there with all these theories that we have regarding child abuse and how they program these celebrities and how they are basically groomed since they are children to become artists. And if you see Chester and his music, what he used to sing about, especially on his first record with Linkin Park, which is called Hybrid Theory, he talks about his trauma with sexual abuse. Songs like Crawling and One Step Closer, it's basically him telling his story about how he coped with the abuse that he suffered.
So there's speculation
Chris Cornell was
that Chester Bennington was basically calling to light this child sacrifice and pedophilia stuff.
Let's talk about the $1 million grant that was given to Chester Bennington's foundation.
Yes. Chester and Mike Shinoda. Mike Shinoda was the backup singer for Linkin Park. They apparently got a $1 million grant from the Clinton Foundation. I believe it was around 2014 or 2015. Back after the Haiti earthquake, they got a grant to set up a recycling center and a textile factory to produce Linkin Park's merchandise. Now, why would a band like Linkin Park randomly get a grant from the likes of Bill Clinton? Why would they?
This is very interesting too.
The phone call, the 9/11 phone call, when Chester Bennington was killed, is supposed to be fake. If you do a voice comparison in between Mike Shinoda and the man calling and reporting Chester's death, is the same voice.
If there is a mistake that somebody might be looking at somebody else's hands or somebody else's face,
that's he unfortunately killed himself,
and that makes, doing different things makes you feel, and that makes, doing different things makes you feel.
Was trying to pick up, and his housekeeper came out and said that.
Do you believe Mike Shinoda was involved?
I certainly believe so. And, maybe I'm overreaching here, but my personal feeling, my gut, that could be wrong, but it's very suspicious if you think about it. It makes total sense. I don't trust it. When I see him smile and when I see interviews and interactions with him and Chester together, you can see there's something holding that guy back. Like he's trying to portray this bandmate persona, maybe for the sake of Linkin Park, but you can tell that he's a little bit envious of Chester being the front man and being the center of attention, because he was the talent in that band. We cannot begin to understand some of these people.
Oh yeah, so it's not on location. I'm a bridge driver. Was trying to pick up, and his housekeeper came out and said that he unfortunately killed himself. He's in his room.
Okay, what's the address where you're at?
College Verde Estate.
And how old is he?
Mid-40s.
Mid-40. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's hung himself in the room?
That's what his housekeeper said. I haven't been in the house. I haven't seen it.
Is that the housekeeper I can hear behind you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bennington was found dead in a home near Los Angeles Thursday morning. Authorities say it may have been suicide. Bennington is survived by his wife and 6 children. And this comes only months after Soundgarden's Chris Cornell, a close friend of Bennington's, committed suicide. Fans and friends of the singer have been filling the internet with tributes. His bandmate, Mike Shinoda, was one of the first to tweet, saying shocked and heartbroken, but it's true.
Well, it's really tragic. They just had a #1 record come out a few months ago, and I don't think anybody expected this at all, especially, as you mentioned earlier, given the death of his close friend Chris Cornell. And Chester actually sang at Cornell's memorial at Hollywood Forever Cemetery just a few days ago, and it just lends an extra layer to this tragedy.
But Chris was impressed because Chester broke his hand in the middle of a performance, and he broke it like in 3 pieces. It was a terrible injury, and he kept playing. He just got it like taped up, and he kept playing. And Chris was so impressed with Chester's resiliency that they just bonded over that, and their friendship grew, and they just discovered that they had more in common than they thought. You can tell in the images and the videos that they have, because we have few images of them together, but the few that we have, you can see them smiling at each other. They hug each other. They loved each other. I mean, it was a brotherhood that they had.
Been a huge fan of Chris, and to be able to do this is we're blessed, you know. And
Awesome.
and it's like when people feel that way, when all the musicians on a tour feel like this is really an opportunity, and it's like we're probably not gonna be able to do this again. You're living in that moment. You're being present with the fact that like. This is a really special thing.
I was naive when I started doing research. I had no clue he was killed. When Chester Bennington got killed 2 months later, I said to myself, this is so weird. This is because if you think about Chester, he would have wanted to take care of Chris' children instead of doing what he supposedly did. Spoken with Chester's sister, Toby, she was hinting that her brother wasn't really a suicide. He was set up as a suicide, and that somehow his death was linked to Epstein. We actually had an interaction on Twitter over that. She saw my video about the preview of my film, and she seems to be in line with what I think it happened. Not only her, but also Samantha, the first wife of Chester, also thinks there's foul play. So why do the both first wives, Susan Silver from Chris Cornell and Samantha Bennington from Chester, they both think there was foul play. But the new wife are doing everything in their power to push this agenda, that it was depression, that it was meds, that it was lunacy, what caused their suicide. There was no outside factors. It was simply mental illness. I think they're being bought and paid for, both of them.
Now, this is super interesting.
Chester Bennington might be the illegitimate son of John Podesta.
If you look at Chester Bennington and Podesta, they look almost exactly alike.
There is an 80% match in between facial structures in between Chester Bennington and John Podesta. An 80% match can only be achieved with one of your parents, allegedly, of course. Yeah, I guess there are some exceptions to the case, but when we have all these things coming out, the grant, the links with Linkin Park in Canada, the pedophile symbolism used in Linkin Park and their albums that seem to be planted there as a mockery on purpose, the triangles, you start to think that maybe there's something more dark involving this whole situation with Chester. His bandmate, Mike Shinoda, all of a sudden was friends with Bill Clinton. Where's the link? Because you can see them smiling and all cordial on pictures. Of course, that's for the press. But there's people that have said that they used to meet in Washington, D.C. after the event of receiving that grant.
Didn't Chester Bennington talk about an uncle who would come to the house and severely abuse him?
Yeah, it was actually described as a family friend, and his father, Chester's father, was a law enforcement agent. He was a police officer. He didn't report the abuse, which is very odd to me. If you're a police officer and your kid is being raped like this guy, it didn't happen once. It's supposed to be happening over the course of months or years. We're not sure because Chester didn't give out too many details. But I would make sure that guy rots in jail. I don't care who it is. But Chester's dad said that it wasn't worth it to press charges because the abuser was also a victim. So he kind of understood why it happened, which I think it's lunacy. It's craziness. Some people say that Chester's father wasn't really his father, was his stepdad, and that Podesta was actually his real father and was the abuser. Chester Bennington's death is, unfortunately, forensic-wise, is the one I can attack less, because there's way less circumstantial evidence, there's way less testimony, there's no photographic evidence because he wasn't playing that night. What we gather from the testimonies is that he was drinking at his home the night before with somebody else because police found 2 beers at his room. They were not even empty. There were 2 beers sitting on his table, just open, not entirely empty.